Okay, greetings everyone, and welcome to an impromptu video to help you get these MLA citations correct. I looked at a few of the assignments where you were supposed to turn in one annotated bibliography entry. It's not due till tonight, but the ones that I saw, you're just not doing this right. So if we had been in face-to-face class, I would have intervened and showed you how to do this. So I'm going to do the best I can here by just recording a quick video to show you how to do this. Okay, so I asked you to, if you can see here, this is where the video will be posted, which is obviously where you found it. You're going to use the Purdue OWL. So the first thing you want to do is go to Google, and if you just need to look for it. So you want to go to the Purdue. Now, because I use it a lot, it came up right away. But you see, you just type in Purdue OWL MLA citation. You can see it came up right away for me. So I'm going to click on that. And then I'm going to go to the MLA Formatting and Style Guide. And when I get there, I am not going to use this. And I'm not going to do it because it is not usually correct. And it will give you an incorrect MLA citation. And what I find is that even though it's a decent guide, and if you wanted to start there, it would be fine, you don't check it. You don't make sure that it's correct. And then there's lots of errors in the citations. And so in general, I would say don't use this. Instead, do it the hard way and use the OWL's resources. So, by the way, if you ever need any help on in-text citation rules, this is where you should be looking in order to understand how to use in-text citations in a paper. So after our class, it is assumed that you can use these kind of resources and look. So anyway, this is how you should always check for in-text citations. Now, also, a lot of you used long quotations in your paper, and this is what you should be looking at to see that. So just remember, use this guide. It's perfect. It does exactly what you need to do. So then you can see over here on the navigation that we're going to go to the MLA Works Cited page, and we'll see that there's a basic format. So you can see that there are basic rules. Okay, and it kind of tells you generally how you're supposed to do it. So go ahead, scroll through this and see kind of those general rules. Then here are, they broke it down into categories. So I will tell you that no one really used any books for their paper or for the annotated bib. You probably won't need to use this. Periodicals, you're not actually checking periodicals out of the library, so you probably won't be using that either, but you are going to be using electronic sources and other common sources. So these are probably the two tabs you'll use the most. So when you click on these, you have to just scan down to see what kind of, you have to know what source you're looking for, and then you need to scan all these headings to find one that matches. So let's say I'm trying to figure out how to cite the Serial podcast. So I'm going to just kind of briefly look at the basic style guide for citing electronic sources, and then you can see that they go down. Now, I'm not citing an entire website. I'm not doing that, so I'm going to skip that one. I'm not citing a page on a website. It's not an ebook. It's not an image. It's not an article in a web magazine. It's not an online scholarly journal. It's not in a database. It's not an email. It's not a blog. It's not a tweet. It's not a YouTube video. And it's not a comment on a website or article. So I've scanned through this whole list, and so far I haven't found it. So don't worry. You had a whole nother category to look through. So I'm going to go back to the top, and I'm going to click on Other Common Sources. I'm going to scan down. I don't have an interview. I don't have a speech, lecture, or oral presentation. By the way, if you're going to cite someone's Curiosity Quest, this is where you would do that. I don't have a panel discussion. I don't have a conference proceeding. I don't have a painting, sculpture, or photograph. I don't have a song or an album. I don't have a film or movie. I don't have a TV show. But aha, I found it. It's right here. Here are podcasts. So this is how I'm going to cite the podcast. Now, what I often do then is I'm going to just copy the example, just so and I don't really know if this is going to paste very well. but we'll try it. So I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to go into Word, and I'm going to paste it. Now, I will say when it pasted, what it did not do is the hanging indent. But right now, what I need to see is what parts need to be. So I'm just going to go down a little bit, and I'm going to kind of copy the formatting. So the first thing that I see here is a title of an episode. Okay, and then I see the show, Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. Now, my background knowledge, because I listen to NPR, I already know that Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me is the name of the podcast, right? And here from NPR, I know is the publisher. Then here is the air date. I know I can tell that. And then here is the website for the podcast. Okay. So taking what I know about that, let's say I'm going to use episode 1 from Serial. So I'm going to type in The Alibi. And it's not episode 1, right? It's just The Alibi. That's what it's called. And then I'm going to put a period and a quotation mark. And then I've copied it just like it is here. Next, in italics, I need the name of the podcast. So it's called Serial. Okay. And then I'm going to put that in italics. Right? And then I need to have the publisher. Now, who is the publisher of Serial? And I've had a couple different, there's a couple different correct right answers here. Technically, NPR actually is the publisher of Serial, but it's also This American Life and WBEZ Chicago. So I've had students try to decide, well, which one do I put? And I certainly understand that. So I'm going to say, it's from WBEZ Chicago. Now, the problem is I can see that from NPR up here is not in italics, so then I need to turn italics off. So I'm going to highlight that, turn italics off, and then I can see after the publisher, I'm going to put a comma there. Now, just a note, the reason I didn't do from This American Life is because This American Life is also the name of a podcast, and I just know that, okay? And so I know that who publishes those podcasts, both Serial and This American Life, is WBEZ Chicago, which is the station. And the station publishes these, but these WBEZ Chicago is an NPR station. So that's why I told students who had from NPR that that was actually also correct. So it's probably okay either way, but the more specific publisher for Serial is WBEZ Chicago, which is why I picked that one. Now, next I need the air date. Now, lucky for you, you have those. On your podcast transcript on the first page is the air date. Now, because I don't have that readily available, I'm going to have to go back to our course. And if I go to content, and then I go to Serial podcast links, and I go all the way down here to Serial transcript, now I can see it. So here's the original release date, October 3rd, 2014. So now I can go back to my Word document. Uh-oh, what was it, October 3rd? 3rd October, and we abbreviate October 2013, and then I can see that there is a comma. So I'm going to put a comma there, and the next thing that I need is the website for Serial Episode 1. So I am going to Google that, Serial Episode 1. And here it is. And so now I've got the address. So I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to put it here at the end. And now I notice here that it just starts at the W. So, and I can tell you that in general, you're supposed to start there, right? You don't have that https:// You don't use that. So we just do serialpodcast.org, and then you put a period at the end. Now, I'm really lucky that this just took one line because I don't have to worry about the hanging indent. Now, if this was one of my citations, and I would have to have that hanging indent. So what I would do is I would highlight it, and then I would actually, so here's my paragraph stuff, so I would expand that. Uh-oh, it's thinking. There we go. And so I'm under the paragraph heading. I want to come down here to indentation. I want to click down here, and I want to click hanging, and I want to click OK. And then I want it to work, and it did. There we go. Okay, so that's how you insert a hanging indent. Okay, also, if these were two of my citations for my annotated bib, I would want to make sure they're in alphabetical order. Here they are, so that is fine. Okay, now remember, I don't need this one because this was just my example, so I'm going to take it out. And now I've got a correct MLA citation for my first annotated bib entry. Okay, so again, use the OWL. Make sure you are scanning through for what type of source you have. And like I told you before, you're generally going to stay in these electronic sources and other common sources for your citations. I showed you how to cite serial, so now there should be no questions about that. And I showed you how I approach doing the annotated bib entry. Okay, so if you have any questions, let me know. I know that it is tedious work. What I have always said to students is that when I have to do a works cited page, I always save it until last. And then I sit down and I say, okay, Jan, it's going to be 2 hours of really tedious work, but I can do it. And then I just slog through it. Okay, you need to do the same thing. Again, using Citation Machine and those other generators just in general don't give you always correct citations. Now, if you want to use them, you can, but then you need to check it with what's on the OWL. So you make that determination. I find it's much easier instead of editing one that's been generated. I just make them myself. I just think it's easier. Because one of the things you'll notice here, which I think is weird, that when we cite a podcast, what they don't have is the author. So Sarah Koenig's name is not in here. And that is strange, and I would not have guessed that. But because I've used the OWL and I've done my best to cite it correctly, then I know that I have it right. Okay? So that's how I would use the Purdue OWL. That's how I would do a correct MLA citation for serial. Now you have how to do it, so I hope that helps with at least 3 of your entries on your annotated bib. Okay, let me know if you have any questions, but I hope that was helpful for you, and I hope that now you have a better understanding of how to use the Purdue OWL. Okay.